Okay, for the second part of the lecture, I start with a definition of conceptual model. Actually, I already mentioned the concept in this slide. Okay, if you're looking into the concept of conceptual model, it's an outline of what people can do with a product and what concepts are needed to understand and interact with it. Okay, so if you're looking into the definition of conceptual model, it can be a kind of high-level description of how a system is organized and operates by Johnson and Henderson in 2002. And actually, conceptual model, it can provide a working strategy and a framework of general concept and their interrelations. So, based on a lot of literature review, uh, we can say that the most stable definition of conceptual model is high level of description of how system is organized and operates. Okay, so the core component of conceptual model can be divided into four core components. Okay, number one is metaphor and analogy that convey to people how to understand. Okay, what the product and what is the step, how to use them, things like browsing, bookmarking, and so on. Number two, the core component of conceptual model is the concept that people are exposed to through the product or including a task, domain, object, and so on. Okay. For example, people need to reduce error when they use Microsoft Word. They want to reduce memory load. So in the system should have some sort like helping user to get information maybe through some visual strategy like using icon and so on. Okay. Number three, the core component of conceptual model is the relationship between those concepts. Okay. And number four, the mapping between the concept and user experience. So this thing can be presented into design conceptual tools like lucid chart, and there's a lot more tools that can be used to help in developing your conceptual model, especially for human-computer interaction system, a purpose system. Okay, so is there a suitable metaphor? Right. Some researcher follow certain metaphor in problem solving. Okay, they are using, for example, the speed train in Japan. They are using metaphor Kingfisher head in designing their speed train head of speed train. Okay, so that refer to some mimicry design concept. Okay, that can be related with metaphor. Okay, so metaphor is something that almost people already know how to use it, and we apply to digital solution or digital world. So there's a gap that need to be bridged between existing way and with a new way. So this is what we call a mapping between them, is by using a suitable metaphor, right? So interface metaphor should combine familiar knowledge with new knowledge, okay, in a way that help user to understand the product or the software. Three-step: understand functionality, identify potential problems area, and generate metaphor. Okay, how to evaluate metaphor? How much structure does it provide? How much is relevant to the problem? Is it easy to represent? Will the audience understand it? And how extensible is it? Okay, another metaphor that normally you can understand well is website and books. So when you go for the book reading, you compare with reading information through the website. But there's a few difference between books and website. Number one, maybe book have a page, but website don't have a page specifically like books in sequence. But in website we have hyperlink. It's not sequence based. Okay, so almost the same website and book, but they are slightly different. Okay, right. So considering interaction and interface type, so which interaction should be considered, and do different interface provide insight, something like more engaged to the user. Maybe you are using shareable interfaces, tangible interface, or augmented reality interface, things like that. Okay, so expanding the initial conceptual model. Okay, what function will the product perform? How the function related to each other, that refer to relationship itself, and what information is needed. Okay, and then when we move to more detail, we can see we can create a concrete design. Okay, that can help in understand conceptual model. We need some concrete design as well. Maybe can be applied in your prototype, like applying color concept. For example, for Chinese community, they really like red color. Okay, if you want to attract people that based on Chinese, they may go for red color instead of the others. So their feng shui concept is part of the metaphor that can be applied into the system. All right, and then the way the concrete design been developed through button and interaction device and so on. Next, user characteristic and context. The third one, culture website guidelines. So there's a lot more information that can be embedded or linked with a conceptual model. And also you can make use of scenario, express, propose in order to help in design. You're going to use a scenario concept that express, propose, and imagines situation. User throughout the design in various way. You can read through all of this. Okay, basis of overall design that can reflect to scenario that I've been tell you in the previous lecture. Okay, so you can also generate a storyboard from scenario like this. There's a lot of icon that can be used and friendly to fast storyboard developments. So this is another prototype that based on CAD prototype that use case from use case. Okay. And then let's explore the user experience that can be used here. The concept of personas. Personas refer to person, personality, or person. It means that personality came from the personality. So visual representation called design map, customer journey, things like that. That, for example, customer journey, you can get more information, tools for developing customer journey. That's also available on the net that you can make use of it. All right. So you can make use representation style, wheel, timeline. Like this is example of wheel. Okay. Designing the experience example WOW. Wow is about logistic of train to airport, Hetero Express. You can see this before, during, and after. So this is related with travel experience with express train to airport. Okay, so this is the representation by using wheel. Okay, and also you can use by timeline. There's a lot more example can be used. Okay, this is this slide showed an experience map draw as a timeline. Okay, you can see timeline step, question, comments. You can put as a timeline. This is another timeline. This is another timeline, and so on. So there's a lot of idea how to help in developing your prototype. So in terms of construction, involving a physical computing. Normally physical computing involving something that you can touch, that you can see, okay? Like toolkit like Arduino, LilyPad, sensor board, Make. So these are the toolkit available for human-computer interaction designer, or maybe usability engineer can make use of it, okay? This is an example of Arduino board. And then this is a Make, very simple computing kits. And Make, you can see how they are using a prototype among elderly, using banana, fruits, and so on with Make. Okay. Right. Another construction tool that can be used is SDK. This one SDK is much more complex, and you need some programming skill to use SDK. Okay. For example, Apple SDK, Android SDK, that would be a very helpful SDK for you in the designing and developing mobile application, right? So finally, I go for the summary slide. if you can see this part of the lecture notes, prototyping notes, different kind of prototyping are used for different purpose at different stages. Prototype answer a lot of questions. The final product must be engineered appropriately. Two aspects of design, it can be a conceptual and concrete. To generate conceptual design, you have to consider an interface component component of conceptual model like interface metaphor, interaction types, and interface type. Okay, storyboard can be generated from scenario, card-based prototype can be generated from use case, and the last one, physical computing kits, can also facilitate in designing a concrete prototype. So among important things of this chapter is understanding a conceptual model, how to make use of tools to develop your conceptual model into, maybe you can draw your ERD diagram, use case diagram, a storyboard, and so on, that will help you in designing your own prototype. Thank you for now.